.NET Framework is a framework that makes use of the C# programming language for building up of Windows and web applications and several integrated application forms, mainly in the Windows platform. Now let us focus on the components of the .NET Framework. The .NET Framework is commonly composed of the common language runtime and the base class libraries. And then comes the WinForms, that ASP.NET and ADO.NET, and other components that make, comprise and that makes the application more optimized are the integrated application forms like the WCF, WPF, card space, link, entity framework, parallel link, task file library, etc. So we can have an overview of the block diagram of how it actually works. So here, link is an advanced form of the faster query processing of the SQL-based queries, and ADO.NET is a backend technology that makes the client-server communication access the backend database. Now, task parallel library and parallel link library are just making the faster processing of the base class library aspect related to the link and the databases. And WPF is an advanced form of the Windows form, and WCF is a Windows Integrated Communication Foundation. So WinForms is the initial Windows forms, and AD.NET is the backend technology that connects between, that gives the connection between the client and the server for backend communication. And base class libraries and common language runtime are the two main basic components by means of which the AD.NET framework works. So C#.NET framework works irrespective of whether it's Windows and web forms. So let us have in short the overview of the block diagram representation in detail, the functionally how it works. So here, what will be the kind of application we develop in? That's the ASP.NET initial two web forms, or console initial forms, or GUI Windows initial Windows forms, or WPF, the advanced Windows application forms, or ASP.NET MVC, the advanced web forms. What will be the kind of application that we develop? See, that basically refers to this half of the WinForms, ASP.NET, and AD.NET, and this part of the architecture, what we discussed, is actually advanced forms that we depicted over here, and the base class libraries and the common language runtime are the two basic aspects. So we have to understand what is base class library means. So base class libraries are nothing but the functional support governing an event for an application to happen. For example, we can take the aspect of it, the calculation, the summation of the numbers, or we can, with the login credential, record to insert the username and password to go into the home page. So what will be the situation comes up, the functional support governing this event of login page as well as the summation of the two numbers comes from the base class libraries. Now, if it's for common language runtime, is nothing but the runtime aspect of the application, where it's actually checks up for all the compilation issues associated with the particular event of the project to happen. For example, in this case, it checks up for the data type and the syntactical errors and the function prototyping errors governing the input of the two data that is to be fed for the summation of the two numbers, as well as the login credential, that is the username and the password, whether they are given in the right format, in the right syntaxes or not. And these are everything checked up at the common language runtime. And once this debugging issue has been resolved, the task manager, that is the CPU, executes it. And that once the CPU executes it, the presentation layer opens up. That is nothing but the browser page in case of Windows web forms, and Windows page in case of WinForms, and a console page in case of console applications. So here, what will be the kind of application we develop, whether it's WinForm web forms or console apps or an integrated service. So we have to, a very crucial thing happens when it reaches the common language runtime aspect. So we can discuss in the next, So we can see that when it reaches the compile time aspect, the whole of the code, that is, it is in the form of an MSL, understandable code, that is in short form known as the Microsoft Intermediate Language. So this is actually the human source code is converted into a machine instructable form that is understandable by the machine, and this has been processed by the GID compiler. So this is something aspect associated with the compile time aspects. So here they actually checks for the manageability aspect of the code. That means it checks up all the data type errors, syntactic errors, and function prototyping errors associated with the particular event of an application to happen. In this instance, we have discussed about the insertion of the two numbers for the summation of the two numbers, as well as the insertion of the username and password for login credentials. So here the syntactic errors, data type errors, and the function prototyping errors, everything is checked up by the JIT compiler and sorts out for the compatibility issues. Once it is free of all the compatibility issues, the particular aspect of the code is known as a managed native code. And once the managed nativity aspect is reached, such a code is known as a managed code, and the task manager executes it, that the CPU executes it, and the browser opens up. The browser opens up in case of Windows page, it's WinForms. WinForms, it's a Windows page. In case of web forms, it's a web page. In case of console form, it's a console page. And if the JIT compiler still finds there's any data type errors or any syntactic errors or any function prototyping errors available, then it is the human understandable form of the code has to be corrected. So that is where the user-friendly person has to correct the code until the JIT compiler receives that MSL in the form of a managed native code. Otherwise, the recycling process continues. We have to go on correcting the errors until we feed the JIT compiler with the correct compatibility associated with the particular project for the particular event to happen. So this is all about everything that happens in case of a JIT compiler, and the transmitter executes and the browser opens up. So let us discuss this feature in short, in a Visual Studio aspects, and we can just have an understanding of it. So we can see this is the two inputs, A and B, has to be fed. So we have declared the int A and B. So here the console guideline method asks for the user-friendly to enter two numbers. And with the help of the console read line, the compiler accepts the two numbers entered by the user-friendly person. And the console convert to int32 method is actually the conversion method that is required. Explicitly has to be done by the user-friendly person, since this conversion cannot happen implicitly by the compiler. That means this int A is initially understand to be in the form of a string, and so it has to be converted into an int quantity. And for that, the converting method has to be called for both A and B. And once that has been done, the console return method actually accepts the summed form of the A and B, that is A plus B. And once that has been done, then the whole of the summed form of the A and B is actually can be displayed with the help of the console return method. And the console read line acts like a pausing event for the event to happen, so that it can display the answer. So we can go for the build option. We check out for the build up issues. So we can see in the left bottom corner of the page is the build succeed. That means it's free of all the compilation issues associated with the compiler. So if we can remove semicolon over here and we can give a build option, we can see. So there's a build operator available here. So that means JIT compiler passes a syntactic error over here. So we need to check up with the syntactic error. See, there's a syntactic error associated with it. So it's asking for semicolon to be entered back. So we have entered the semicolon back and giving build option. So it's again, we can see it's a free of all build succeeds, it's free of all the compilation issues. Now there is a supply of an int quantity is absent. Now if you give for a build, so we can see there is asking for the B entry. The B is not available, it has not been fed. That is, this is a insufficient supply of the data error. So it's a data error being shown here. So that we have to check up with the compiler. And so the compiler finds up to a compatible code, and it's set to be a managed native code, and the compiler executes it, and it's free of all the syntactic and the function prototyping errors. And so we can give for the start option, go for the debugging session of the page. So we can see so we can go for the share the screen where exactly this happens. So we can see, yeah, it's asking for the compiler asks for the two numbers to be entered. So we are entering 25 and 75, and we can see that some of the two numbers is 100. So this is how a C# program works.